Hey, welcome back. Man, if there's one thing I love, it's having a guest that I've known for years. This next guest is an incredible guy. And he is caught up with the web, something I just have not done yet. And he's starting this whole new thing, very much like a blog, but conversational and historical. Wait till you hear what this man has to say. My name is Vin Dacquino. His name is Dr. George Robinson.
Good to be here, Vin.
George, a pleasure. You and I go back a long way.
Yes, we do. Back down in Pelham.
Yep, Pelham and what used to be the College of New Rochelle.
That was a good gig while it lasted.
Yeah, while it lasted. A lot of good memories. One thing we always shared was a love of history. And now you have a new gig, buddy. Talk to me about what the heck you're doing, George.
I have an online newsletter that I am sending out once every 2 weeks. And something that you would be familiar with. The first one, it was about burning of Danbury.
Oh.
The way I got started with this, it's because my wife and I would be driving in a car, and my wife would say, "What was that sign?" Or, "Whose statue is that?"
Yeah, the infamous
and I
blue and
kept
gold.
going. And it took a few years before my wife convinced me I should stop and let her look at the sign. So while she was looking, I went out and looked, and they were interesting. I want to know more about them. I want to know the stories behind the signs, behind the monuments, behind the statues. So being a photographer, I started carrying my camera with me. And so each time we stopped, I would take a picture of the sign, the monument, the statue, and then I would do some research because I'm a researcher. And eventually I had all these photos and all these ideas. I figured I would put them together in a little bit of a story. The way I like to write is to take pictures first and then write about the pictures. I can do that.
Yeah.
I don't like
I've seen some of your
without
wonderful
pictures.
I've seen your wonderful underwater photos. You are also a deep sea diver.
Yes.
And you've taken some incredible photos. You've even written a couple books.
I have a couple I have books about the coral reef, ABC Guide to the Coral Reef. I have I did one on shark, what would you call it, shark tagging. And I have others on land books dealing with animals. Yes.
Yeah. So you are a big believer in history. I know that you picked up on a lady I happen to run across for the last 20 years, Sybil Ludington. And it's funny because that's how I got involved. I passed one of these blue and gold signs. It said that she rode past this spot in 1777 to help repel the British in Danbury, Connecticut with Colonel Henry Ludington. I had no idea. And this sign was just enough to get me into the library and to start doing research on her.
There's additional signs besides just Sybil. There's signs for her father.
Oh, yeah.
And
Major Andre?
In the middle of Danbury, there's a sign that recounts the Danbury burning in 1777.
Yep.
And the reason the British wanted to burn Danbury is because they were a supply depot. They burnt 1,000 shoes and another 1,000 tents, and they just wanted to disrupt everything that the Patriots were doing. But then Colonel Ludington, along with General Wooster, staged basically a counterattack, pushed them out, and there were a couple of skirmishes.
Yeah.
In those skirmishes, General Wooster
was
killed.
Yeah.
They have a Wooster Cemetery in Danbury as a large Masonic statue to him in the cemetery.
Yeah, I just recently found a letter from 1854.
Wow.
From Charles Ludington, Sybil's nephew, who wrote a letter in 1854 about going to a dedication for the statue for Wooster in Danbury. And he wrote it to the orator for that event.
Wow.
And talked about the ride. So that was monumental about the monument.
I have that photo on on the historic newsletter, as well as a photo of the cannonball that landed in the Keller Tavern that is still there after several hundred years.
Yeah. In fact, I have a photo of that in my new book.
Okay. We'll take the same photos.
It's amazing.
But I traced the story up and down the Connecticut, retelling that, and it makes a nice little road trip when you look at it. But in addition to that one, there's other signs that we came across. Edict Crosby, Major Andre, dealt ones with the spies.
A friend of mine sent me an email and said, Vin, I read somewhere that Major Andre stopped in Red Mills when he was arrested. And on his way from Terrytown, they went to the home of a James Cox, C-O-X. Well, I did some research for her because she couldn't find anything beyond that. Turns out his real name was James C-O-C-K, James Cock, or Coke. And he lived there at Red Mills, and they stopped there. So historically, there should be a sign there.
There's only a
Red Mills
sign.
Yeah,
there's only a Red Mills sign about Red Mills being there.
Well, there's Red Mills, and there's also Sybil sign now is at the Red Mills Park.
Okay.
Originally, it was on the side of the road, and that's where I had seen it. Now they moved it across the street when they redid the park.
Okay. In traveling with Major Andre, one of the things I found was the person who turned him in was a guy named Pauling, and he has a statue down in Tarrytown.
Wow.
Didn't know about. Went down there, took a picture of that.
Yeah.
And his story is that he had escaped recently from British compound or imprisonment, and he had stolen one of the British coats. So when Andre met him and his two buddies, Andre thought he was on his side. Help me out, and he wasn't. And the sad thing about Andre, because he had the plans for the West Point in his boot, and that's how they caught him.
Yeah.
The British already had the plans; they didn't need them, and that was like, oh, you're being hung for something you didn't have to have.
Yeah. Now, George, you are a member of my Mahopac Writers Group.
Yes, I am.
And you've been sharing a new book that you're doing on the same lines as your ebook.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about Central Park and that project.
Okay, it's not a book. What I found out is it's a book only when it's published. Before it's published, it's a manuscript.
Okay.
So I have a manuscript, and it's called Silent No Longer, The Central Park Statues Speak. And one of the things that I had mentioned before is there's a lot of statues in Central Park, and who are these guys?
Yeah.
I
remember.
What's their story? So I wanted to tell their story, but I didn't want to do it in a Wikipedia fashion with just facts one after another. So I set up, because I'm a teacher, and I've done a number of school trips, I figured I'd have 4 students and a teacher go around in a special, for a special time, and they would interview the statues. Now, I had to bring things up to date, so I had the statues connected like Siri or Alexa so they can talk to you. They're also connected to databases, so they have all this information they can relate to you. So the students ask the statues questions about why are they there. They ask them some really tough questions. They go to Hamilton and they ask him, why didn't you run for president? What secret did you have that prevented you from running for president?
Yeah.
Turns out he had an affair and didn't want people to know about it.
Whoa.
And then they go to General Sherman, who has this monster statue right on Fifth Avenue and 59th Street, all in gold, and they ask him, don't you think you should be brought up on war criminal charges for what you did to marching through Georgia? And he defends himself. Very interesting.
You even have an interview with a dog.
Oh, Balto is one of my favorites. He was the lead sled dog for the diphtheria run when the Nome, Alaska didn't have enough vaccinations to help the populace avoid that. But the thing, looking at the cartoons, the movies, you think there's only one dog sled. There were like 40 dog sleds.
Wow.
He was the one who got there first. And being first has its rewards. The dog that should have gotten it, Toto, he had the longest run over the most difficult terrain. He wasn't there because he got the scent of a reindeer when he was off chasing lunch. So the dog that was there got the kudos.
That's it. And there's quite a few statues in there.
Oh, well, not only did I do the statues,
But you did
I did
benches and
historic
plaques
statues, not all there's artistic ones. I didn't do the artistic ones. They really didn't have a story for me. But I also did the benches. There's tree markers. There's an obelisk. There's a mosaic down there also. So there's a whole bunch of places that
So you
can
had
go
to
to find
research
them.
every single one of those.
I did. I thought I was just going to do 10 or 12, and it ended up to being 44.
44. It's unbelievable. You know, when I was much younger, I used to spend Sundays in Central Park with a friend before I was married, and we used to just hang out there. We just absolutely loved it. You know, and it was funny because we used to meet at some of these statues. I never for once turned around to say, what is this a statue of? Walter Scott, I believe.
Okay.
You know, I passed that statue 100 times until I.
Those are all they're in the literary circle.
Yeah, there's and isn't there like a walkway?
Yeah, literary walk.
Yeah, literary walk. And so there's a bunch of them there.
Yes.
So what you do is you go there and then you had to research. I would imagine a lot of time spent in the New York Library.
You can do a lot online.
Yeah.
And you can also download ebooks to get that information.
Yeah.
One that I found very interesting, a statue that just didn't seem to fit. It's out of place. Why is it there? Statue of King Jagiello. He is a Polish king from the 1400s. What's he doing there?
What's he doing?
He's on a horse with two swords crossed over his head, this magnificent figure. Why are you there? Found out that he was there because of the 1936 exposition that they had in Queens. And each country had a little tent, a little place to show off what their country was about. So they had that statue there. He was a replica of the statue in Krakow. 1936, the Germans came into Poland, overtook it, took the statue from Krakow, melted it down for bullets.
Wow.
The exposition is over. You can't send the statue back. It's going to be used for bullets. So the people got together, they raised money, and they said, we're going to keep it here in Central Park.
Wow. Now, you did John Lennon?
Yes, the mosaic, Lenin, right across the street from, I can't remember the name of the house that he...
oh my goodness. Call it in, quick, somebody. No, Dakota?
Yeah, Dakota House.
Yep.
And interesting there, it's a peace park. There's a special
beautiful
section there, and countries from around
that's
the
where
world...
you used to go.
Countries around the world put their names to a peace plaque that's also there that you off to the side you have to go look for. Yeah, so it's a very popular place. On his anniversary of his death, the place is crowded with people and flowers all over the place.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. You could feel the peace there. So, any favorites there?
Oh, every time I do one, it became a favorite.
That's right.
I say Balto is probably my favorite.
Yeah, I know Balto.
Alice, Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
She is both a character and a real person. And her story is interesting because at the end of her life, she was tired of all the paparazzi and people asking her questions about, he called him Dodo.
Toto.
No, she called the author of, I can't even think his name now, of Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Call it in!
people would ask her questions about him, and she says, I don't know all this stuff. These are philosophical, epistemological questions. Who knows? Just go away, leave me alone, and let me have my life. I am not that character. She was very upset about all the publicity surrounding her life.
Right. So, how long did it take you to do all these?
That's about 2 years to research that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now, is the project done?
I think the project is done. You can always go back and re-edit it, take things out that don't belong. I'm in the process of trying to find a agent I've sent out query letters to about 55. They say
Wow.
you're not finished till you do at least 100.
Yeah.
And that's why in the meantime, that's why I'm doing my On the Road to History newsletter, because I get a chance to do more statues and plaques and keep my hand in writing. Otherwise, I would be nothing to do.
Yet you're still teaching some classes over Connecticut, right? At
I'm a writing instructor at Western Connecticut State University. I have 2 classes right now, probably 2 in the fall. That keeps me busy. It makes me a better writer, teaching students how to be better writers.
Yeah, I hear you. So now this new e-letter that you do.
Yes, newsletter.
A newsletter. So you have, I think we have the
Website?
link. Yep, the website.
My website is my name,
Yep.
georgejrobinson.com. On it, I have some of my photos that you mentioned, the underwater ones
Yep.
and the animal pictures. I have some writings. I keep, each time I do a newsletter, I just did the 8th one today on the pig wars, which I'll tell you about in a minute.
Yeah.
I repost it so people can see it, but that's where they can also sign up and get a free book too.
There you go. George Robinson, PhD, GeorgeJRobinson.com.
That's me. Let me tell you about the pig war.
Yeah, tell me.
America almost went to war with Britain over a pig.
Oh, okay.
It took place the year before the Civil War, so it would be 1859 on San Juan Island.
Some guys
Now,
do
where
anything
is
for
San
bacon.
Juan Island? I didn't know either. It's only because I have a colleague, because when I send out my newsletter, I said, if anybody has a picture of something interesting, send it to me. So he did. This person was one of the people I served with in Vietnam as a language instructor. So he lives on San Juan Island, which is an island between the state of Washington and Vancouver Island, right in the middle there. Way back before then, there was a dispute as to where the boundary should be. So they decided a boundary between the United States and Canada to be the 49th parallel, and then they brought it down through the strait so that Vancouver Island would be British and the other side would be American. The problem was they didn't have that good of surveying back then, so they didn't realize that San Juan Island has 2 straits, one on the east side, one on the west side. They just said down the strait. They didn't identify which one. Consequently, the Americans claimed it and the British claimed it.
Uh-oh.
So there's a dispute there. One day, a farmer who had just rode across the strait to get some seed potatoes, put them in the ground. He's growing them. And one of the British subjects had his pigs over there and rooting up his potatoes.
Oh,
And so he asked him to stop a couple times. After the third or fourth time, the guy took out a gun and shot the pig.
uh-oh.
And then he said, felt bad about it, went
We
over.
shared the bacon.
Yeah. I'll give you $10 for your pig. He says, no, I want $100. He goes, no way. Well, I'm going to get the British gunship up here. So they tried to get the gunship up here to arrest him. He went in hiding. The gunship went back. The other Americans there, we're going to be on your side. They put up a large flag. Just so happens that General Harding was going by doing an inspection of what's going on, saw the flag and say, what's going on? And they told him about the story. We'll have some Americans help you out. So the British saw the Americans coming. They had more gunships. And one of the Americans that was in charge was a man named George Pickett, who you may reckon from the Civil War. He switched sides after that. But it was a mismatch in men and guns. The British had 5 times as many men, I think 2,000 to 400, and maybe 10 times as many guns, 170 to like 15 or something like that. It wasn't going to be a fair fight. But he was captain then. Captain Pickett was ready for a fight. He wanted to get a fight going. Cooler heads prevailed, and General Scott back in Washington said, no, we're not going to do this. He recalled Pickett, and the other general wanted to do it, and things calmed down. So for another 10 years, there was a quiet peace. British on one side, Americans on the other side, with nothing to do. It was probably good duty because they missed the Civil War.
Yeah.
But they were there, and in reading the story of it, what they did was they had contests with each other, racing contests, wrestling contests, and then at night they'd have dinners for each other. And somewhere along the line there were women involved because they had dances too. So, but it ended peacefully, and no war was fought over a pig, though it could have been.
Wow. Now, George, where do you get these? I mean, are you following a line? Is there a geographic genius behind this, or you just?
It seems to be serendipitous.
Okay, yeah.
Wherever I go. I was visiting a friend up in Poughkeepsie who was in Vassar Hospital. He was having a stent put in. I went up there to visit him. I was too early, so I had to wait. So I went outside and started going up and down the streets because I saw one sign, and I just kept following it. And I found all about the Vassar Brothers Hospital and the Vassar Brothers Vassar University. And it turns out he made a lot of money. He made it by making beer and selling beer.
Wow.
At one time, he was the largest distributor of beer in the country.
Wow.
So he had a lot of money.
Yeah.
So when I went out to California to visit family, I figured, no, I'm just going to take pictures of scenery, of Yosemite National Park. We go up to Sacramento. There's a statue of a horse. It's the Pony Express. That's where they started. Next to that is, what is this? Oh, it's something about the railroad. The Union Pacific Railroad started there. Whole story about those two. We go out of town a little ways, and there's Sutter's Fort. Isn't that the same guy with Sutter's Mill? They were the 49ers.
Yeah.
And so I get a story right there.
Yeah.
So it seems like wherever I go, I can find a story.
Yeah. I mean, well, there's monuments everywhere. I was always fascinated by these small towns, who have, they have this statue of this guy in the middle of their town, with a cornpipe, and turns out that, he founded the town or he saved somebody's life. And
what's his story?
Yeah, what's his story?
And
there's so many wonderful stories out there.
So when you find one like that, take your iPhone out, take a picture, send it to me,
Yeah.
and I'll do the work, and eventually it'll
Get the
become a
story.
newsletter.
Yeah. The world is filled with wonderful stories, wonderful statues, and hopefully some of your curiosity will be aroused by what George is doing here, and realize that these signs were put there for a reason. And you have to wonder, who were these people and why? Why were they celebrated? Was it just a few people in particular who happened to think that person was great? Or was that person really and truly great for some reason? So I love what you're doing, George. It's fascinating. There's so many different stories. And where does it stop? I mean, I figure if my calculations are right, you should be doing one somewhere around 235 years old. It's going to take you a lifetime, 5 lifetimes before you're done.
This, as you say, the statues all over the place.
Everywhere.
I was just at West Point.
And you don't stop at statues. You do plaques, do benches.
Somebody has a name on it. Why is your name there?
Playgrounds. I always wondered why, as a kid, I went to Quinn Playground. And I always said, what is Quinn Playground? And it turns out that Quinn was a guy that deserved to have a park named for him. Or my high school was Thomas R. Proctor High School. I bet you so many of the kids that graduated from Thomas R. Proctor High School had absolutely no idea who Thomas R. Proctor was and why they named a high school after him.
Yes.
It's a fact. Buildings. There's whole buildings named after people. Who's this other guy? Trump. Never mind, let's not go there. But true. There's so many different names everywhere. In Utica, where I grew up as a kid, there's statues all along the parkway. Some of these people I've never heard of. So you have your hands full.
Yes.
And if you don't want to go through all the trouble of knowing who all these people are on your own, this guy's doing it for you. Go onto his website and look at some of these wonderful, fascinating people, because they are truly wonderful, fascinating people. that you're looking up.
Yes.
Where are you going now? I mean, are you going to leave here today and go look somebody up or what?
I have the way I do my newsletter, I just did the 8th one. I have 10 more that I've already done because I have to have a cushion. Otherwise, I get all nervous and excited.
Yeah.
So I have a number. I just went down to the Hall of Fame Terrace, which when I grew up in the Bronx used to be NYU. It's now Bronx Community College. They have over 100 busts there.
Oh my God.
Of different people. Took all their pictures. Down in New York City, I'm sure you remember the girls' soccer team. They had a big ticker tape parade.
Oh, right. Yes.
On Broadway, if you look down, for every ticker tape parade that has ever existed, there is a marker on the ground. I went down and I took pictures of all of them. I'm not going to bore people with every single one. I just took the women's statues. So I got 9 or 10 women that I can talk about and write up. So those are there's a number that are around. People send me in ideas. My wife says this summer we have to take a trip down south to do the Civil War battlefields.
Yep. And Anna Hyatt Huntington, one of the greatest female sculptors of our time, who actually made Sybil Ludington's statue, has done a number of other statues in and around New York City. So there's your challenge, George. I want to know all the statues that Anna Hyatt Huntington made.
That's a theme I could follow up on.
There you go. In the meantime, you follow up on us. Keep following George. George has some wonderful things for you. Go to GeorgeJRobinson.com. You got it. GeorgeJRobinson.com and get to know your history. Thank you so much, my good man, for being here today.
Good job.
I love what you're doing. I love what you're doing for history. It's important. There's so many people who might as well be dead if someone doesn't remember them. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for being one-on-one with Dr. George Robinson.